My brothers and sisters, my dearest children, today happened to be the day in which the Imam Council of Canada, along with the Justice All, one of the advocacy group, have decided to focus Jum'ah khutbah on the Orange Day, which is recognizing and commemorating the truth and reconciliation that have taken place in Canada, recognizing and acknowledging the rights of the indigenous people, the first host of this land that we're standing on right now. Acknowledging the fact that the indigenous people have been treated unjustly. They were brutally killed in a genocidal way in an attempt to cleanse them from the land that they have been living on for generations. That genocidal war took place in a very dark time, not in the history of our country, but in the history of humanity, when colonialism was an ideology exercised by certain nations on earth who have felt being mandated, quote unquote, to occupy or colonize nations and lands for the purpose of establishing life in these lands. It happened to the indigenous people. It happened also to the Muslim Ummah prior and post of the collapsement of the Khilafah. And both the indigenous and the Muslim nation in large have suffered a lot from this ugly ideology of controlling other nations for no legitimate reason but to utilize their resources and to suck the blood of the people who are living in that land. This happened in a dark time of our history, in a dark time of the history of humanity. Millions, not thousands, as it is claimed, of indigenous were killed. The reality, the matter of the fact, there was a civilization established in North America by the indigenous people in the two America, North and South. But when the white colonialists came to these countries, they brutally have killed thousands, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, and exercised the same systematic colonizing strategy to root out the indigenous from their own land. They had the upper hand by force and used the power to kill as many people as possible. They also have deliberately cut the sources of food for the indigenous people to prevent them from being able to flourish and sustain their living. They also have deliberately spread the diseases among them to cause death to them. As I'm speaking to you, you can draw the parallel between what happened to the indigenous people and what is right now happening to the people in Gaza. The big difference between what happened 2 centuries almost ago and what is happening right now is the fact that what happened in the 1800s to the 1900s was done in the lack of awareness and among the people of the earth. While right now the genocidal war that is happening in Gaza is instantly being broadcast on social media and mass media, some of the mass media outlets. Maybe some of you have watched the news this morning and we kind of become accustomed to seeing this, and unfortunately we become desensitized to watching this in news of every day. The Israeli aggressive force, the genocidal force, have bombarded concentrated gathering of civilians who were forcefully asked to concentrate in certain areas that are designated by the Israeli army to be safe, killing up to 50 people. Majority of them are children and women. The killing of those who are trying to get food for the children is becoming a norm, between 50 to 100. That's not alarming. If the number goes beyond, the media outlet becomes outraged. This is how pathetic the whole world has become. Yes, we understand 2 centuries or 200 years ago, it was permissible or possible to hide such an ugly fact and act, but one cannot justify it and able to find a reason to why in the most civilized era for humanity, when whatever happened in any corner of the world is seen by the rest of the whole world, we're still seeing a genocidal war taking place. This day represents a fact of a child who was stripped from her orange shirt when she went to school. And let me give you an idea of what happened in our loved Canada 200 years ago. There were a large number of students who were forcibly taken away by the government of Canada, allying with the churches at that time, to force them go to residential schools. In these residential schools, the mission, the target, the goal was to assimilate these children and make them lose their identity, exercising genocidal cultural act. During these brutal, dark ages of our country, many children were forcibly exposed to sexual assault, physical abuse, to the extent that almost 20,000 of them were killed during this era. Every once in a while, we hear in the news about the discovery of new unmarked mass graves for children that they were buried at that time and no one knew about them. This is how dark and ugly what was happening about 200 years ago. What is really sad is there are almost 186, close to 200 maybe, children in Gaza were killed during the last 2 years as a result of this brutal war. It is happening in front of everyone. The United Nations, the Security Council, the International Justice Court. And what makes things even more sad and make us sometimes unable to find words to describe our feeling of helplessness and powerlessness and our anger into the leadership of this world, who have become so stink that no one can handle to see them anymore on media outlets and the news outlets anymore. All of you, or some of you maybe, and I hope you're following what's happening. Netanyahu, this criminal who's supposed to be behind bars, was doing a speech to the United Nations Assembly. And when he attempted to stand on the podium to speak, majority of the attendees left the hall to send a very clear and strong message to him and to his puppet, the leader of the United States, that no longer you are going to fool us with your lies. Not too long ago, this clown made his way to the Congress of the most powerful nation on earth and gave a speech and was interrupted almost 50 times with applauses and cheers for the lies that the majority of the attendees know that they are lies. Nowadays, the masses of the universe are saying to their representatives, enough is enough. Your stink is getting too much that we are unable to handle you. This is it. Enough is enough. This is why you're seeing right now countries who are saying we need to acknowledge that there is a genocidal war happening in the 21st century. There's something happening in front of the whole world. There's someone or entity that is continuously avoiding and ignoring the rest of the world rules and standards and morals and principles and values. This is, walillah alhamd, making the masses of the world acting. You probably have heard lately of the group of ships who have, despite of many attempts in the past for the Israeli forces to prevent them and stop them in the international water from reaching the Gaza shores to deliver food and medication and supplies for these children who are dying. Again, I can't help it but to just express my helplessness and anger as I was watching this morning how the children of Gaza, who as a result of the war are getting to a level of suffering that it is shameful literally on humanity to see it happening and not doing anything about it. They were reporting a story of a child who was laying on the ground, and I saw, and the camera zoomed on the ants, the insects coming to this child who's paralyzed after a tank shelled him and his own father when they were trying to rescue some of the belongings of the house so they can take it to the rest of the family where they're mislocated in one of the tents. The father was killed instantly. The child was hit in a shell that made him completely paralyzed, unable to move. That's not how sad the reality is. That the insects are now eating his body, similar to what we heard and what we read in the tafsir of the Quran about Ayub alayhi salam, who was paralyzed, who was laying on the ground, who have felt that he lost everything and everyone around him have abandoned him except his own wife. But what's really sad is the fact that this child, and along with another elder whose story was reported, they were saying what is killing us is not the lack of medical care, it's the hunger. It's the hunger that is killing them. It's the lack of the necessities of living, my brothers and sisters. And that's happening again in the awareness, 100% of the leadership of the whole world, including our leadership of the Muslim Ummah, who happened, by the way, to meet not too long ago with the leader of the superpower of the earth. And he again fooled them and lied to them and made them walk away with comfort and satisfaction that soon the issue of Gaza will be resolved and the war will be ending. Well, how big of a liar you are. The Prophet ﷺ said to us, ثلاثة لا يكلمهم الله يوم القيامة ولا ينظر إليهم ولا يزكيهم. 3, Allah Azza wa Jal will not address them in the day of judgment, would not be looking at them, and would not make an ease and comfort to them in that difficult day. Among those is al-Malikul Kadhab, the person of authority who is lying and deliberately continue to make lies. So we say to the American people who have already felt the stinkiness of their own leadership, who have already exposed the lies of their own leadership, we say to them, we feel sorry for you, our hearts are with you. Because I continue to repeat it over and over again, I personally believe in the American dream. I am in the same trench with every American who's suffering in the streets of America. I am with every parent who's struggling to pay the mortgage for their homes. I'm with every family who's struggling to maintain a decent level of health care for their own families. I'm with every Latinos, and I hope that you have watched the news again this morning to see the Latino mother being kicked on the ground by the guards as she was pleading to the guards to not to deport her own husband, because if he goes back to where he came from, he will be killed. And I could not help it, wallahi, but crying when I heard the kids in the background crying as they're seeing their own mother thrown into the ground and brutally treated in an inhumane way in one of the most powerful nations on earth that continue to teach the world about democracy. This is the ugly reality we're living in. What's even uglier is to know that after the Truth and Reconciliation we had in Canada, which we all were happy with and so proud of our country for doing so, we continue to see that the indigenous people continue to suffer in their life. Though being 1.8 million constitute about 5% of the population of the earth, 35% of those who are unhoused in Canada are indigenous people. Big percentage. 54% of the children with the foster care agency are indigenous children. Majority, while 50% of those who are in the foster care agencies are indigenous people, though the number or the percentage of the children from the indigenous background constitute only 8% of the population. So give you an idea of how still the assimilation, the brutal treatment for the indigenous people continues even after the Truth and Reconciliation, which we have made it to come to the surface as of kind of shrugging and swiping things under the carpet. The percentage of women who commit suicide from the indigenous community is 8 times higher than the percentage of other women in Canada. Again, it gives you an ugly idea of what's really happening in Canada. I really appreciate the fact that Canada, along with other countries like Britain and Australia and almost 140 countries in the rest of the world, have finally endorsed the establishment of a state for Palestinians. That's so beautiful. That's really nice. Finally. But what state are you talking about? Are you talking about a state in the ocean of land that is occupied and taken unlawfully by the Zionists, by the genocidal government of the Zionists, creating small cartoons here and there that are unable to connect with each other? Just like what happened with the indigenous people being pushed to reserves in different parts of the country, and still make their livelihood very difficult, as it is the case with the Palestinians who are living in their own villages, disconnected from the rest of their family members by walls that have divided them into small pieces and pieces. Are you not aware of what he just said? This man who should be arrested according to international laws, who said to you clearly in the Assembly of the United Nations that he's not going to stop the war. He's not going to allow a state for Palestinians to be established. Well, if you were to truly be honest about what you say, first of all, work on improving the quality of living for the indigenous people, the true hosters of the land we live in. What it takes Canada to be able to make that happen. Come on, we're a country with a lot of resources. What it takes is a will of integrity individuals in the government to do it. And if the rest of the world, including the 140 countries who have said that we recognize the state of Palestine, if they were to be honest and people of integrity, they will right now stop the importing of weapons to the state of Israel, killing children in Palestine. They would right now impose an economic embargo on Israel to prevent it from continuing to ignore all the laws of the world and continue to create chaos, rather than bragging in the United Nations Assembly and say we're fighting terrorism. You are the source of terrorism in the world. You are dragging the world to a third world war, for Allah's sake. Wake up the whole world and stop any further damage to this planet we're living in. This is the ugly reality we're living in. We need to see actions. We no longer will be fooled by lies and lip services anymore. This is it. The masses of the world are waking up now. Alhamdulillah, the number of those who are demonstrating in the streets of New York around the United Nations building is sending a very strong message to this person, along with his own allies of extremists, that no longer you will be able to apply your evil agenda anymore, because the world is conscious and will continue to stand behind truth and to continue to support the truth, because this is our job as Muslims. وأقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه فيفوز بالمستغفرين. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور انفسنا وسيئات اعمالنا، من يهده الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا. ان الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا ايها الذين امنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى ال محمد كما صليت على ابراهيم وعلى ال ابراهيم، وبارك اللهم على محمد وعلى ال محمد كما باركت على ابراهيم في العالمين انك حميد مجيد. اللهم ان عبيدك ابناء عبيدك ابناء امائك نواصينا يا رب بيدك، ماض يا رب فينا حكمك، عدل فينا قضاؤك. نسألك اللهم بكل اسم هو لك سميت به نفسك، أنزلته في كتابك أو علمته أحدا من خلقك أو استأثرت به في علم الغيب عندك بأن تجعل القرآن العظيم ربيع قلوبنا يا رب. اللهم اجعله جلاء لهمومنا وأحزاننا يا رب العالمين. اللهم إنا نجأر إليك ونتضرع إليك ونستغيث بك في هذا اليوم الفضيل وفي هذه الساعة المباركة. نسألك في بيت من بيوتك بأن تفرج هم وغم وكرب المسلمين في مشارق الأرض ومغاربها. اللهم ارحمنا واحقن دماءنا، فك أسر أسرانا، وداوي جرحانا ومرضانا، واطعم جوعانا. اللهم وشافي مرضانا، اللهم وأحسن ختامنا. اللهم نسألك بأن تفرج هم وغم المكروبين في مشارق الأرض ومغاربها. اللهم نسألك بأن تمن علينا بالصلاة في المسجد الأقصى آمنين مطمئنين فإنك على كل شيء قدير. وفقنا لنصرة دينك والوقوف الحق فإنك على كل شيء قدير. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وأقم الصلاة.